they give him hilarious instant justice. And now this happened at an uptown Charlotte, North Carolina construction site. A video popped up online which shows what construction workers do when they catch a man messing with their truck and stealing their tools. When the workers caught him, they taught him a lesson he won't soon forget. They actually took the suspect and tied him up to the outside of the construction to wait for the police to arrive and take him into custody. But once news of what was going on got out, a crowd gathered and ridiculed the suspect until he was taken into custody. Somehow I doubt this guy will be stealing anything else anytime soon. Crime Talk reports, theft from construction sites can be an expensive issue, whether it's the gradual, but quickly mounting, costs of small item theft and petty thieving from light-fingered opportunists passing your site, or thefts of larger items as a result of break-ins and robbery. But when you also consider the costs of litigation and insurance if a member of the public is injured as a result of items stolen from your site, such as being crashed into by stolen plant vehicles or hit by an item rendered unsafe following a break-in, and it's easy to see why the cost of appropriate security for your site can easily repay itself over time. So what are the facts and what preventative action can you take? Fact 1. Theft is a real and relevant issue in the construction industry. A recent survey conducted for the Chartered Institute of Building identified that 92% of their respondents in the construction industry are affected regularly by theft, with 21% of these revealing that theft takes place on a weekly basis from their sites. Complete stock take and equipment audits regularly and as a standard on-site procedure, to help quickly identify patterns in theft or times of increased vulnerability. Improve security to your site's boundaries. See this guide on security fencing for construction sites from Safe Site Facilities. Fact 2. Theft can result from health and safety neglect. Thefts don't just occur from less than honest workers and opportunistic visitors during working hours. Many thefts result from neglect and security when sites are closed. Whether it's failing to have secure barriers in place to restrict entry or failure to lock away items such as vehicles when not in use, health and safety neglect is a key factor which contributes to regular theft. Complete a health, safety and security check with immediate effect. Identify vulnerabilities to your site's security when open and closed and implement a plan to address those vulnerabilities, such as replacing compromised fencing or barriers with reinforced concrete barriers. Fact 3. Safety of employees and the public are an important consideration. Forget fiscal costs for a moment and consider the cost of loss of life or permanent injury which could be caused, directly or indirectly, as a result of theft from your construction site. Revisit health, safety and security audits and policies with your employees and the general public in mind. Highlight priorities for preventing theft and accidents relating to poor security. Consider environmental factors such as employee access to the site, or any public rights-of-way such as pavements which are crossed by vehicles and machinery moving in and out of your site, whether as part of the working process or as a result of being stolen. Choose security barriers which allow for supervised access points. Fact 4. Organized crime is a real issue in the construction industry. It's not just opportunistic thieves after a few tools to sell on who benefit from poor site security. With the prevailing prices of some metals such as copper, lead and aluminium, some organized criminal groups specifically target sites which are known to use these and other valuable materials, as well as to target building materials generally for resale or other use. Consider site security in terms of processes as well as policies and placement of items. For example, you may regard standard barriers as secure enough against passing vandals and opportunists, but will they really withstand an organized attempt to breach your security, particularly if you have easy access during working hours? Ask your managers if they really know who is coming onto the site on a daily basis and why. Whether any casual contract workers are fully reference checked to identify if basic security processes are in place. If they are not, consider what needs to be done to address the issue, to ensure that people, as well as property, are fully secure on your site. Fact 5. Security is about prevention and safety. Short-term cost cutting when it comes to site security can turn out extremely costly in the long run. An unsecured or poorly secured site is an open invitation to criminals, so all measures should be taken to secure site boundaries and access with suitable, hard-wearing and fit-for-purpose equipment, such as steel-enforced concrete barriers. Installing flimsy alternatives which are not suitable to the working or geographical environment, such as high winds, will offer poor value for money and may pose additional hazards to employees, visitors and the public. Similarly, if you choose to use a security company, choose a fully insured, reputable company with fully referenced employees rather than a cheaper alternative which could possibly prove to be a rogue company. Purchase site security barriers from reputable companies which offer guaranteed products, quick installation and a full backup service. The bottom economic line for construction site security isn't about asking what security measures you can afford to implement. It's about asking what you can afford to lose as, in the majority of cases, the cost of fit-for-purpose site security is quickly regained through reduction in thefts, insurance claims and premiums, and in retaining good reputation for prioritizing your employees and the public's safety. Construction site theft is a major issue that has been affecting the construction industry for decades. The theft of building materials to tools to heavy equipment. Construction site theft is an industry-wide epidemic with no end in sight. In addition to the direct added costs of replacing all the stolen materials and tools, there is also the indirect cost due to rising insurance premiums, rental costs to replace stolen equipment, and lost productivity while waiting for the items to be replaced. Delays in production could also result in hefty fines laid out in the contract if deadlines are not met by the construction firm. While no concrete numbers are currently available, most industry experts believe that losses due to construction site theft reach at least $1 billion or more annually. According to the National Equipment Registers, NER, 2011 Equipment Theft Report, the total value of stolen heavy equipment alone was close to $300 million for 2010. It should be noted that this report focuses solely on heavy equipment losses and does not factor in stolen building materials, tools, or the other indirect costs mentioned earlier, such as loss of productivity thanks to not having the correct tools or materials needed in time. Please share if you want to see more thieves publicly share. Trump just sent the perfect present to Obama that was the worst news he could ever receive. Share tweet: President Trump is a far better president than President Obama was. There is no doubt about that. Look at the poverty and employment rates and that will give you your answer. His leadership in Charlottesville, Virginia is a perfect example of the type of leader he is. Despite the fact that President Obama has been bashing the current White House administration over pretty much everything, from healthcare policy to transgender people in the military to tax reform. However, Trump got his retribution in the best possible way against the former president. On August 4, less than 10 days ago, a polling website on Twitter asked followers who they thought was the better president, President Obama or President Trump. Clearly, they started out on the wrong foot because the question was a flagrant attempt to garner support for the former president, given the fact they asked on his birthday and added the hashtag #ObamaDay. But the results spoke for themselves. 61% voted for President Trump and 31% voted for President Obama. Even President Trump retweeted it, and it is one of the first searches when searching for the hashtag #ObamaDay on Twitter. How is that for some good karma? Liberal mainstream elites don't want to admit that fact though. The Daily Century reported the following: this comes after Freedom Daily reported that Illinois Governor Bruce Rauner signed Senate Bill 55 this week, making Obama's birthday a holiday in his state. The bill states that Obama's holiday will be observed throughout the state as a day set apart to honor the 44th President of the United States of America, who began his career serving the people of Illinois in both the Illinois State Senate and the United States Senate, and dedicated his life to protecting the rights of Americans and building bridges across communities. The comments section of the article speaks for themselves. Karen Davis said the following: "I pity you poor fools, you're like sheep. You follow, you don't research and find out for yourself." The Clintons started the ball rolling on pitting American against American, Then Obama came in and destroyed our healthcare system and bullied everyone by calling them racist if they didn't follow his party line, all the while spending millions of taxpayers' dollars on himself and his family and also funneling billions of dollars to countries with terrorist ties, and ends his term by bringing in millions of illegal immigrants, whose sole purpose was to take over America and make it a Muslim state, which Hillary was supposed to close the deal on. Barbara commented, "Oh my God, you poor thing, really, come on. President Trump has the guts to stand up to these other countries and get something done where Obama did nothing. You're extremely delusional, honey." However, other outlets called suspicion onto the polls. When it initially came out, Bustle wrote a similar article stating, "The account from which the tweet came is Progress Polls, which has also asked users questions such as, do you think it was insensitive of CNN's Ed Acosta to insinuate that only British and Australian people speak English to Stephen Miller? And do you think the wage gap for women is real?" The results were overwhelming yes and no, respectively. This result differs from recent polling from other polling places like Gallup and Quinnipiac University, the latter recently finding that Americans' disapproval rate of Trump is 61%, while his approval rate dropped to 33%. That recent polling is pretty on par with his 6-month rating, which was the lowest 6-month presidential approval rating in 70 years. Trump still has nearly half of his working vacation to go, but if he keeps it up with the aggressive language toward foreign powers and bolstering his own public perception, it could end up being one of the more memorable presidential vacations. No matter what, the mainstream liberal media will find something to complain about. The poll speaks for itself whether it is scientific or not. Yet they still try and find ways to disavow it. But President Trump is in power and Obama is not, and the poll clearly shows that, and shows there is a reason people don't like him. Had President Obama worked on behalf of working class Americans, people would have likely been far more pleased with him. Instead, he was a hypocrite who pretended like he was, meanwhile enriching himself off the oppression of others. While President Trump has been willing to pick up that slack, working with veterans, military officials, truckers, union guys, the people who symbolize middle-class America. Those whom are often forgotten but always there quietly unseen behind the shadows. Obama was a failure, there are no ifs, ands or buts about it, and this poll proves that after Dog the bounty hunter just caught up with Source and gave him a dose of instant justice. Dwayne Lee Chapman, who to the world is more commonly known as Dog the bounty hunter, has traded in catching small-time local criminals and is now actively going after international criminals. Dog and sidekick wife, Beth Chapman, are now going after the big dog. The reality TV show pair has been hunting down the man who has probably committed more international crimes against humanity than any other figure alive today, the international billionaire George Soros. Soros and his son, whom he is grooming to take over once he's gone, have used their billions to fund a multitude of malicious political endeavors and organizations who promote extreme far-leftist causes from the shadows of their multiple mansions. Operating in secrecy was to keep their pattern while they leave a path of destruction and Islamization in America and the rest of the freedom-loving world. And since Soros is one of the wealthiest men in the world, he has been operating all these years well above the law. Until now. He's been doing this for decades now and is now actively going after President Donald Trump, but he never expected that someone like Dog and Beth would have a huge hand in bringing him down. The Gateway Pundit reports, Soros, a man who has long pushed for the destabilization of American and European societies through trying to Muslimize Europe, paid for anarchist protesters to be bussed into riots across the world, worked to destabilize the American political structure, and much more, typically remains in the shadows, preferring to attempt to keep his name off the records and off the books. This is not true when it comes to one of his flagitious operations, known as the Drug Policy Alliance, which openly boasts of Soros on the board. While the name of the Drug Policy Group sounds like a positive venture of stopping the circulation of narcotics, ending the addiction epidemic, and getting addicts help with recovery, these positive ideas of improving society are not at all what Soros is funding. With his name on the board, you can expect something evil to come out of it. rather than ending the drug epidemic, which now claims more lives than car accidents. Soros and his sick society are wanting to perpetuate it by putting more drugs and criminals on the street. Former Breitbart investigative journalist Lee Stranahan has made it his mission to expose this particularly evil plan of Soros and his drug cartel society. When he found out that the alliance was holding a press conference, Stranahan and the Chapmans showed up and ruined everyone's day in the best possible way. The Gateway pundit explains, among George Soros' more openly nefarious plans, he is attempting to first push for the widespread use of drugs on American streets. The second part of his plan involves the release of all drug addicts from prison, leading to widespread panic and chaos. And they don't even pretend to hide this objective. Beth Chapman and Dog the Bounty Hunter confronted Roseanne Scotti, Senior Director of Drug Policy Alliance, after Scotti broke into a private press conference concerning drug policy and lured some of the press over to a corner. Once confronted by the Chapmans, Scotti proceeded to run from answering any questions. The best part of publicly calling them out on their twisted game was that Stranahan caught part of the confrontation on tape. The coverage of the encounter included when Scotti ran away like a coward, trying to hide the dirty work she was doing for Soros, with Dog and Beth chasing her. While holding a press conference in order to change the current political narrative where they convince society as a whole that drugs abuse is just a disease and should be treated as one, Scotti was suddenly silent when she saw the bounty hunters there and abruptly walked away. Since Beth didn't get a chance to ask her questions, the Gateway pundit spoke with Chapman after to find out what she would have said had Scotti not run away from them like the criminal she is. I wanted to ask if she had ever done drugs, if she had ever had a problem with drugs, have she had ever been strung out on drugs to the point you could barely function in society. And if she said no, if she hasn't had that experience, then why would she be talking like she is? People seem to forget that Dwayne, Dog Chapman, and I have been dealing with these people, drug addicts, on a day-to-day basis. We know who should get out and who shouldn't get out of prison, Beth told the outlet. Beth explained why this drug policy is so profitable for Soros and his cronies and why they are hell-bent on getting into this game. It could be the billionaire's biggest worst plan yet to gain total control of the country, especially when combined with the other evil conquests he has in action. They're running a scam to push for pre-trial release and steal more taxpayer money. But it's not even a problem of it just not working. They are directly trying to aid and abet, and increase, the criminal element that exists on our streets right now. They're trying to achieve this by pushing that narrative that doing drugs is a disease. It is not a disease. The good hard-working people of America know that these are not diseases, they are choices, and continued bad choices result in addiction. Depending on the class of substance, which is heroin and opiates. Treating the drug issue as a disease rather than a crime issue will make our streets less safe and increase theft. If it was just a disease, people wouldn't cheat and steal to get their fix. When is the last time you heard of a diabetic mugging someone to get money to buy insulin? Please share if you would like to see George Soros behind bars.